Sup, everyone.
All right, and Fiona's hopping in too. So, as y'all
Yeah.
know, we're trying to do these like every Sunday, just kind of bring value to people. I broadcast in here to talk about her experience as a connector, a capital raiser, and among many other talents that she has. And like I said, we're just here just to drop bombs and answer questions until. So, Cass, why don't you kick us off? Like, tell us a little bit about your experience when you joined SubTo, how you found your lane in that connector role, and kind of where you're headed.
Yeah, absolutely. I love to share this story because I think that so many people kind of have a similar story. And when we're looking at social media, we see the highlights, right? We see the reels. Like Adam, you jumped in and like you found some success pretty quickly. And I think for a lot of people, that's not what they find and they get discouraged because of it. So it can be tough. So, it took me a long time to kind of find where I wanted to be. I joined SubTo in 2021, so August 2021, which is crazy to think that, in a couple of months, it'll be 3 years since I've been in the community. And I found it because I did a wholesaling class that I found on Facebook. It was like $17 a week long. I feel like I run into a lot of women who were in the Women in Real Estate network. It's called REAN. I can't remember what the acronym was for, but um, I felt like they taught me how to be really dangerous. They're like, go give somebody $10 and write a contract and sell their house to somebody else. And I was like, that seems way too easy. Like I don't like it. And they're like, join our mentorship and learn more about it. But I just wasn't vibing with them. And that's how I ended up finding Pace, was like just through YouTube University and looking more into real estate investing. And obviously he just has an aura about him. Like he just grabbed my attention right away. So I joined. And I did a lot of cold calling. I worked with a lot of different teams. I found some success in wholesaling. Actually, my first SubTo deal was in Indiana, and I was going to assign it, and I was ended up assigning it to a flipper I met in the Flip Me mentorship. And she was talking to Pace about working with wholesalers, and he ended up funding the deal. Because I'm driving up a mountain one day, okay, going to buy a mattress for one of my short-term rentals. And all of a sudden my phone starts ringing and it's Instagram and it's Pace. And I'm like, okay, somebody's messing with me. Like this is totally fake or whatever. But I answer it. And I'm driving up a mountain, so I have poor reception and it hangs up and he calls me back again. He's like, I'm trying to call you, Cass. I'm like, okay. So I was like, what's up, Pace? And he's like, hey, I heard you have a deal for sale in Indiana. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, why aren't you selling it to me? I'm like, because you don't buy in Indiana. So why would I sell it to you? Anyways, like, so are you trying to have a bidding war because, you're setting up this showing for the house with all these wholesaler or all these buyers coming? And I'm like, well, honestly, it's because everybody wants to see it before they buy it. And the owners are like, mentally weird. I can't, what's the word when people don't like to go outside? Do you remember?
I was going to say something, but that was
Antisocial.
going to be mean.
Antisocial. No, it's like a
Yeah.
hype. It's not like a hypochondriac. It's something like that. Anyways, they were really freaking out about having to leave their house. So I was like, so I'm just trying to have one day of showings, I'm like, but if somebody gave me an offer, I don't need to show it to anybody else. He's like, agoraphobia. Thank you, Amber. Um, so he's like, well, how about I fund the deal? And I'm like, great, sold. Here you go. Good deal. So that was pretty rad. At the end of the day, though, wholesaling just wasn't the return on time investment that I wanted. Getting big fat checks is exciting, which by the way, I dumped back into marketing. So I was like, man, this is a rat race. I don't love it. So at the same time, I was building up short-term rentals through arbitrage. So I have 6 studios in Anchorage. I got a lot of joy out of doing that, but again, it was kind of a hustle, and things started changing regulation wise, yada yada. Um, and it was really just, I didn't know what I wanted to do in real estate. I really didn't know. Um, like many entrepreneurs, it's like you go through these valleys and you're like, what the heck am I doing? Like I had a comfortable life, just going to work, and I could do whatever I wanted. And I wasn't waking up at 4 in the morning and, staying up until 10 o'clock at night, like working on this stuff that's that's not a huge return, but, I just kept at it. I bought a rooming house last January that has been a huge learning experience. A 12-bedroom house that's rented out by the room. A pretty cool cash flowing property, super hard to finance, by the way. So
Learned
throughout
that
the
the hard
course of
way.
last year, say again.
I said I learned that the hard way. Doing that
Me too.
raise for another rooming or co-living or pad split, whatever you want to call it, pretty much the
Hmm.
same. But
You're having a hard time
this,
financing it?
well, I was having a hard time financing it. They ended up bringing somebody else in that's going to bring their own lender, but
Yeah.
whole another story.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
But
it's kind
I
of the
didn't interrupt.
same. And that's what led me into this connector role because, we raised the private money to purchase this property outright. So we bought it cash at about 42% of the tax assessed value. So we thought we were winning, right? We had a pre-approval from a hard money lender to refinance us out. They're like, yep, 45 days, no problem. You get to skip all these fees since you've already owned it. So we're like, great, easy peasy, right? So we start the refi process, 60 days after we had purchased the property, and they're like, I know we told you we could do this, and you were very transparent, but psych. And I was like, what do you mean? Because we structured our private money to be in the deal for 6 months, and that was really just to say, hey, regardless of when we refi you out, we're going to pay you, this flat amount to make it worth their while. So now we are going on 1 year and 3 months because I have literally called every lender I could find. I mean, of course, we could have refinanced them out with another private money lender, but at the end of the day, when you're paying interest only, you're not really doing yourself any favors, right? I mean, there's no equity pay down at that point. So, our private money lenders like, no, it's fine. We totally understand. We love getting your paycheck every month. So we're good. So we're finally at the end of the tunnel here where local banks will look at it. Um, there's a light at the end of the tunnel now that we have the seasoning, but over the course of that year, having all
Did
those
you plug it in?
conversations. Hi,
Plug
Amanda.
in.
Having all those conversations, I realized I really like to talk to lenders, and I know the stress of trying to fund a good deal, and just when you're the operator as well, that's a lot to have on your plate, you know? So
Yep.
being able to work with people like you, Adam, like Amber, like any of you here as a connector, if you can take that capital raising off their plate, or you can take finding the buyer off their plate, or you can take any piece of the deal off their plate, you're bringing huge value. You know what I mean? So it's not I have to hit the phones, find the deal, underwrite the deal, do all the things in the conveyor belt. It's all about finding the people who you can put in each one of those roles so that you can concentrate on what you're really good at and what you love to do. Because otherwise you're going to hit those walls every time as an
Well,
entrepreneur, being like, why the heck did I do this to myself? You
hey,
know?
Cass, I want you to hammer something home for me because you mentioned something, and I think a lot of people could gain from it. You were talking about like you got to 6 months. You're at a year and 3 months.
Hmm.
What did that communication look like, right? Because most people just start to panic and they freeze up and they're like, I don't want to talk to people because it stresses me out. So
Right.
what did you do in order, besides just telling them like, look, I can't really refi you right now.
It was scary at first, before having that first conversation. I remember having the pit in my stomach because, all I want to do is do what I said I was going to do. You know what I mean? And honestly, it was my business partner's relationship. So it's like I knew the person, but I didn't really have a relationship with them prior to this. And I was like, look, we got to tell them, like, we got to tell them that this lender, pulled the rug out from underneath us. And and that the last couple of ones have said no as well because we're in Alaska and it's just not fitting their lending box. Like, we just got to tell them, and that's exactly what we did. I mean, at the end of the day, you don't have to find a flowery way to say it. You just need to say the truth and be transparent. Listen, you guys saw our pre-approval. This is what they said. We're flabbergasted, right? But at the end of the day, we're going to still pay you. And, we still have 4 months to get this figured out. And they were like, no problem. It's good. Thank you for letting us know ahead of time. So it wasn't like the final hour the day that it comes down to us needing to pay the note for the balloon,
Mhm.
and saying, hey, we're going to have to extend. Now, also, keep in mind, we already had escalation clauses. So our contract had already said, if we pass this 6-month mark, which we never fathomed would happen, here's what's going to occur. So that was set up before things got bad, right? And when I say bad, just means it didn't work out the way we planned it to do. So the
Right.
last thing you want to do when you're creating these relationships and setting up a loan, is figure that out when it happens. It should be figured out in advance, because then everybody knows what's going to happen. That takes a lot of stress off everyone. So our interest rate increased. They still get paid every month. Life is good.
Let
Now,
me ask you something. Did you put the escalation clauses in and make sure that all that was done because Alaska is traditionally a more difficult market? Because you've told me before that like title up there is different, you know, lenders up there are
no,
different because it's Alaska, it's not the lower 48.
no, I didn't. Hey, do you want to, I get distracted easy. Can we mute Jordan? Thanks.
Yeah.
No,
Gotcha.
actually we didn't. And honestly, we had zero reason to believe that we weren't going to have them refinanced out in 60 days. We set it for 6 months just to be, we're setting this for 6 months, just in case there was waiting time with the appraisal, honestly, because appraisers were really busy. It was hard to get on their schedule. It's the only reason why we set a 6 month in the first place. Had no reason to believe it wasn't going to get refinanced. So it was all a matter of, this is how you're supposed to set things up from the beginning. Had no other reason than this is how you should set things up from the beginning, because you should always have those what ifs answered. It's just like we never want to, we want to plan for the worst and hope for the best, right? But you always plan for the worst, because then again, it's not happening when emotions are high and things are going wrong. It's happening in the beginning. So that just makes
Like
it that much easier. Hey, we're going to have to elect to take on that escalation clause because here's where we're at, right? So just continuously following up with them of like, hey, we got a meeting with 3 more lenders this week. They say they can finance a tree house, in an industrial park. So we're feeling good about it. And they were like, okay, great. Because at the time they were just like, hey, we want to redeploy our money into other deals. I mean, they're sitting with $265,000 into a deal with us, right? So it's not
right.
like a small chunk of change, you know. Um, and then as time went on, and again, we continued to communicate with them. They're like, honestly, I'm gonna be sad when this ends, because it's so great just getting a paycheck like clockwork on the first of the month and not have to do anything for it. Like we don't have to go vet other deals. Like, this is nice. And I was like, hey, happy to put your money to work as soon as we pay you back. You know what I mean? So yeah, there's that. What is Amber saying?
Well, Blake asked about the DSCR, and I was waiting for him to come back from grabbing his drink so you could address that.
Yeah, the DSCR. So I mean, 100%, right? But somebody's got to be willing to do it. So being in Alaska, again, it's just a smaller market. So a lot of lenders don't necessarily work up here, but even the ones they do, it's just a very interesting asset class. So it's a single family home, but it has 12 bedrooms and it's fully sprinklered. So everybody wanted us to reassess it as a single family home. And I'm like, no, because it's a rooming house. Like, we actually have permits and it's zoned specifically for that. It's a commercial use code. And it's just like people weren't getting it, just like more and more lenders are willing to do and look at properties as a short-term rental and consider that type of income. Whereas, a few years ago, they'd only look at it as a long-term rental, right? So if it didn't cash flow as that, they're not going to give you funding. So things are kind of changing in the lending industry, but this is also one that just has not caught on. We've had a couple of brokers say, hey, if this wasn't in Alaska, we would be able to do it all day. We've had others tell us, hey, it's just too small for our commercial program. I mean, we're looking for a cash out refi of 340, it wasn't anything major. So it's just one of those deals that just don't fit anywhere. And it really makes sense for a local lender, a local bank to do it. but they want seasoning, you know, they want usually 2 years, but they're willing to look at it with us now.
Yeah, Amber said, I think it's so important to hear the other side of it when things do go wrong. I hear from capital partners constantly when these types of situations happen, but at the end of the day, partnerships and communication are so important. And she said that she's glad that they were reasonable.
Yeah, me too, Amber. Me too, because it could have went a totally different way, right? I mean, I guess, but at the, it's kind of crappy to say it, but like their other option would be to foreclose on it, right? And they don't live in Alaska. They have no idea what the operation is or like how they would handle it, right? They don't have the resources here. Of course, if they chose to do that, then so be it. Honestly, I still would have helped them out. I mean, like, listen, let me help you run this, or we'll do it whatever we need to do because I want you to get your money back. Like, I don't think most people have the intention of not like repaying their lenders. But I will say this is that a lot of people get scared when things go wrong, just like you said, and then they just start ghosting because they're like, I don't know what to say. I don't know how to save face. And then they just freak out and then disappear off the earth, you know?
Right, because they feel like they have egg on their face now, and they're like, I just can't even show myself in public anymore.
Yeah.
Why would I bother? Why would I address my issue with Cassandra when it's just easier just to let it all fall to the wayside? And it's like, guys, that's how you get bad credit. That's how you get bad reputations. That's how you get blacklisted from certain lenders, from certain industries. And like you said, co-livings are hard enough to deal
Hmm.
with as it is. And they're a great cash cow because they're a single family home that operates as a multifamily unit functionally,
Hmm.
but they can be tricky. And I saw that with the raise that I was doing because it was a subject to.
Hmm.
So there it was low equity takeover and just making sure that we had everything to where the lender felt valued and secured was hard enough in and of itself because of the amount of collateral you have to provide for a second position lien.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. And I think that's where the rubber meets the road, right? I mean, honestly, think about it. When things go right and go exactly as planned, like sure, people will still want to loan you money again, but it's not something that really sticks in their head so much, right? It's when things go wrong is when you truly get to show yourself. Like, so think about, have you ever had an experience at like a restaurant or a hotel or whatever where it was just something disastrous happened, but then the staff like went way above and beyond your expectations to provide you with that 5-star service? That's a place you're always going to remember, right? That's a
Yeah.
place you're going to remain loyal to.
Yeah, I'll
So,
give you one. We had a server apologize for her manager. And you
yeah.
know what? That server walked out with like $100 tip.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Even though the service was terrible, the kitchen did everything wrong. She communicated the entire way through from start to finish. She was at our table like every 7 minutes. It was like clockwork. It was, you know,
And
there
she could
she
have
is.
just blew it off. She could have been like, man, these people aren't going to tip anyway. So who cares, right? We
Right,
just will see him again. No sweat off her back. It's not her business, right? But she took responsibility for it. And that's the huge thing. So, I would say to anybody who's in a difficult situation, that is all the more reason to go above and beyond and be like, listen, I'm doing everything I can. I want you to know that.
yeah, it's having that level of extreme ownership that Pace talked about on family night the other night.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I have a deal I connected last November and we're over past due on the note. House isn't selling. There's just a lot of inventory that flooded the market, and that's understandable. But I was like, hey, listen, man, like you need to keep me updated. Like, quit making me chase you down,
Yeah,
because now when you're telling me like you're in the middle of a refi with other properties and whatever, like I almost am like, are you lying to me? Because like
right,
you're not doing anything to be proactive and telling me about what's happening. Like you're making me chase you down, ask you 20 questions, be the investigator. And hey, listen, I don't mind doing it because at the end of the day, I'm not going to just be like, oh well, I connected somebody else's money to the deal, that's all I did, wipe my hands of it, right? Like it's my responsibility.
right.
And also to keep my lender from wanting to go take his kneecaps out, right? I'm like, I don't think you need to end up in jail over
Well, and also I would
$20,000.
say, guys, that if you're a connector, you're a capital raiser, you're any of those things, that right there is the biggest red flag you can see before the JV goes into place, before the money gets sent to escrow. is if I have to chase you down, that's an automatic no. Like I had to turn down a couple of deals because the people were combative. Their borrower packages looked like garbage. I'm trying to ask them questions. I'm messaging them at 12:30 at night, like laying in my bed trying to get answers. Why am
Mhm.
I doing all this for your benefit? It's not to benefit me. I might get a small commission check off of funding your deal, but it's not worth that to me. It's not worth the brand damage that comes from that.
Yeah, and I wanna hammer this part home too. Those aren't people you wanna work with. It's hard when you're trying to get a deal, right? Or you're trying to get your first deal or maybe your first couple of deals, right? Because we're motivated by getting the experience, the money, etc. Those aren't the ones. Move on. It's just treat it like a no. And don't ever feel bad about asking questions that you should be asking. If they're like, "Man, you just need too much." Be like, "Yeah, so do you. You need dollars, right? This is how you get the
Right.
dollars." So if you're not willing to answer these questions, and I'm not willing to connect you to my relationships
And
because
stand
that
firm
is
on
your
that,
biggest
guys.
currency.
Stand firm because the person in particular tried to gaslight us. I had brought another connector in on this deal because she was familiar with the model, the market, and the borrowers. And her and I got on one Zoom together, and in 20 minutes, we had more questions than we had answers.
Mhm.
Huge red flags. All the sirens are going off. We have no idea what's going on. Um, and I just I text her. I said, "Look, I said I don't think you'll be upset by this because you and I share the same sentiments here, but I'm I'm GTFO. Like I am out. I have no desire to do this. I've been trying to work with this person for 11 days to gauge interest, and he couldn't even tell me if he had exercised his extension or not. He told me he had a 2-week extension they planned on exercising. As soon as I drop out the deal, suddenly he has a month.
Yeah.
Like, bro, you could have told me that. You
Yeah.
could have told me that at any point. You could have said, "Hey, bro, I'm here to help. What do you need? And I'm here to answer all your questions." Instead of like when I told him that my UW had questions on his borrower package, he told me my UW just didn't read it. And I was like,
Okay. Even if he didn't, so what? Do we
well,
know each other? You know?
well,
Like,
that's
what's
the
the
thing, right? Is
relationship?
I try to forge relationships with the best of the best. So if I sent it over to an underwriter,
Mhm.
it's not it's not somebody that just started the underwriting course yesterday.
Right. But even if they did, Adam, it doesn't matter. You
No,
know,
you're right.
even if your
And
underwriter didn't read it, it doesn't matter. If somebody wants to ask you questions about a deal and you don't have a prior relationship, now, say you guys have been working together for a year or 6 months or whatever, and you've done multiple deals together and you know what it's like or whatever, and you're still kind of like hammering in on small things that you probably should have already, you know what I'm saying? Like, do you know what I mean by that?
yeah,
Like, then
no,
maybe
one
okay,
one hundred
right?
percent. Like you have to have that relationship established. I'm asking you questions. I need you to give me answers. I
Yeah,
cannot do anything without the information provided. You
right.
gave me a pitch deck. It's 6 slides long. It looks really pretty. Congrats, you took a marketing class one time.
Mhm.
That's all I gathered from this whole
Or you
thing because
hired somebody on Upwork, or
I
Fiverr.
have I have no idea how much equity you're offering to PMP. I have no idea why you think these interest rates are reasonable for your deal because they're not. I said I have no idea where your deal is right now. Have you closed it? It's still under contract as far as I know, but it hasn't gone through escrow. Like, have you opened escrow? Like, what? Where are we? I don't know.
Right, right. Now, on the flip side, sometimes I have lenders that are just really excited to get a deal done and they want to do stupid shit. And I'm like, now listen, I was involved in a deal and I said, this, you need to do XYZ on this deal. And he's like, I don't want to make it overcomplicated. I'm like, okay, well, it's your money and you're not super secure right now on how you have to set up. And he
Also,
elected not to. And honestly, I should have backed out. I should have been like, hey, you do you. I don't want to have any part of this deal because now I feel the stress that it wasn't set up in advance. So now we're like on a hope and a prayer, right? That this guy comes through and pays what's due to it because it's not going to happen out of the deal you know, we have it collateralized on. So be firm on both sides. because really in the way you're kind of the expert. You're like the transaction engineer, if you will. Like there are so many people who are inexperienced on both sides of those coins, right? And it's as a connector, like that is your true value, is to be able to speak both of their languages and translate, but then also say, listen, like this is what everybody needs to do to make sure this deal is good, even if it doesn't go well. So everybody's protected. We all know what the path forward is, no matter which way the deal turns. So you got to be firm on both sides. You know, it's not just crappy borrowers out there. It's excited lenders or inexperienced lenders who are willing to do something that puts them at risk. And we're kind of responsible to help them out with that too.
Hey, Cass, I don't want to miss this because Amber had asked us a minute ago about your deal. She said they couldn't do a deed in lieu to take over without foreclosure. Yes, there is much ghosting. They are too embarrassed. We all have to wear adult pants in this business.
Mm-hmm. And yes, Amber, they could do a deed in lieu. And like we'd happily hand it over to them. The fact of the matter is they don't want it. You know what I mean? Again, like people still think that we ride dogs to work here and live in igloos. So, you know, to take over a property in Alaska is probably not what people necessarily want to do. So I guess you could look at my private money lender and think, is this guy out of his mind for lending on this? Because is he really looking to loan to own? You know, if the worst case scenario. Well, I'm glad that he was crazy enough to do it because I got to learn a lot. Blake, you got your hand raised?
Let's pull them
Um,
up.
yeah, I'm just excited to be here, but completely changing the subject on you if you don't mind.
Ugh,
Go ahead,
always.
bro. What you got?
So I figured
Besides
out pretty
burrito
quickly.
favors.
Burrito favors. I need to hook up with my DSCR lenders because I literally went to a conference about DSCR loans from IMN. Know a few lenders who they might not normally be able to do that, but I know like owners of lending companies, so they might be willing to do it depending if it made sense or not. But besides that, as a connector, how have you found is the best way for you to just make money or just not waste your time? Because I've just been drowning in SubTo the last 2 weeks, which has been great, but I'm still just trying to figure out my niche.
Well, I
You
need you
want
to
to go first,
clarify your
Cass?
question a little bit.
That's fair.
I need you to clarify your question a little bit as far as how do you make money and not waste your time? So one, what have you been doing?
So the last 2 weeks, I've been calling with somebody pre-foreclosures in Texas.
Hmm.
We locked up have like two deals locked up from that, which is going to be nice to get paid out on.
Hmm.
Um, here's the hard part. I know what I want to do, like down the road. I just don't know how to get there, and it's not even technically real estate. So I'm just trying to. I'm sorry, I'm coming with a mess of a question. I know.
Okay, so let's
Um,
expand on that.
how
What do
much
you
do you
want
want
to
me to
do?
expand?
What do you
So
want to do ultimately?
what I want to do, and one of the reasons I joined SubTo is I want to start a school that teaches kids how to think instead of what to think. I'd like to start it here in St. Louis, where I'm local to, in the worst possible area possible, with the worst people possible, and see what I can grow it into. Had that in the back of my brain since 17. I want to just try to connect local businesses and apprenticeship opportunities, like integrate it into it, and make it so all these kids that are just being failed by the system are essentially graduating career ready with some form of hope in their life, if they want that.
Do you have the zero down program in your vault, in your
I
SubTo
do.
vault?
I haven't
Okay.
looked at it yet.
Well, you should probably be looking at that. Because so
Okay.
what's your goal here? Like you're gonna wholesale to get to that point? Like, is that what your thought process is? Help me understand.
So my thought process right now is wholesale and just meet the right people and keep speaking about that and that I'm going towards it. And maybe start come some kind of like monthly men's leadership retreat or men's leadership meetup and just
Mhm.
start linking up with people that are like-minded on it. And as I get more funds and more connections, just figure out what I can do on my feet. I have no idea how to do it. I just have an idea of what I want it to be.
Okay, I think I have an idea of where he's going with it, Cass.
Mhm.
So I would tell you that you should definitely start where you are, right? Like you're
Mhm.
gonna need a lot
Yes.
of money to do something like that. And
Mhm.
zero down is definitely a good place to start. It is
Mhm.
business buying, and ultimately schools are in fact still a business regardless of
Mhm.
what they have. And that would be the easiest, shortest route, is to buy something that's already accredited, because then you don't have to worry about going through the accreditation process, which could take years. There's just no telling.
Mhm.
So um, all that's a good place to start. Pace is releasing prop.ai towards the end of this year, which
Mhm.
should, in theory, allow people to take a business from unlisted to under contract,
Mhm.
um, just by using the software. How it all
Hold on,
works,
say
I
that
don't.
again. You say
Prop.ai. That's
unlisted to under. Holy crap! Sorry.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
It's going to be really big. He hasn't talked a lot about it. He's only briefly mentioned it on a couple of family nights, so that's why I know it's
Mhm.
coming up. That's
Mhm.
why, like, right now, what I'm doing is just capital raising and connecting as my form of active income, and I can
Mhm.
use that once prop.ai is released. Then I'm going to switch gears to look at buying businesses.
Mhm. Okay.
So I guess also to answer your question about not wasting your time, I mean, you should be talking to educators and you should be
Mhm.
talking to people with money and looking
Mhm.
to raise capital for these deals. And you can start fleshing out what your vision is to be able to explain that to investors.
Mhm. Which makes sense.
Because,
And mhm.
I mean, are you going to wholesale your way into funding it? I don't, that doesn't make sense to
No,
me.
I'm gonna
You
find
know?
somebody sitting on $200 or $300 and other people that are sitting on that much. And
Right.
we're going to create an amazing freaking school that we're going to franchise nationwide and turn the American school system on its head. And like,
Absolutely. And you're not
yeah.
going to do that by buying pre-foreclosures,
No.
right? So those two things aren't
Can
related.
I can I tell you why I'm doing that right now?
Yeah.
So I got like as soon as I joined SubTo, I was kind of loud and obnoxious, made some people figured out who I was quickly. And I got a lot of opportunities to cold call with people.
Hmm.
And most people either they weren't professionals in my opinion, and I didn't want to work for them.
Hmm.
Um, or it was just they were pretty much diminishing me to like, you're my acquisitions guy. I'll pay you 10 cents on the dollar and you're gonna slave away on the phones and work 24/7. I'm like,
That's
that's
where
just
most
not
people
a
get their
value.
start.
Yeah.
100%.
Well, I've also spent 3 years knocking doors, so
Hmm.
I just didn't think that was worth my time and theirs.
100%.
Fund managers. So the guy I work with right now, he's got a 15-year corporate sales background. It's Ryan McRae, if you're familiar with him. Um, he's in SubTo. I just like his style. I like everything he's doing. I like that he's a huge integrator and just super OCD about his systems. And my big thing is like I just want to put my nose to the grindstone, learn how to close better, learn how to interact with people better, and make money doing it over the next 6 months. So it's not that I'm making the wholesale check from it, it's that I'm making money while learning a process that I need to use to close millionaires and billionaires in the future as I become one myself. So that kind of makes
I,
sense, maybe?
yes, but you're still on the wrong track. So that's
Which is what I'm
okay.
trying to figure out. Yeah, yeah. Mhm.
I
Okay.
think I think what Amber said is true. I think connect with fund managers, get, because that would put you in the room alone, right? Like Hunter Thompson
Mhm.
has the free fund of funds mastery course. That's what I'm taking right now to join the Vishkar's free community.
Mhm.
If you want me to, Blake, I'd have your number, right? We connected on family
Yeah,
night that
we've
night.
text. Yeah, we did
I thought
text.
so.
Yep.
I'll send you a Vishkar's Calendly, and that's the top of the funnel to join his capital raising community, which will then that's going to send you all the way down the rabbit hole. And I think that's going to be the rabbit hole that you need to go down.
Yeah, because if you
Okay.
can raise capital, you can insert yourself into deals and make money. And I think that those skills and working on those things are probably more important than, you know, like closing deals, especially if you're closing deals with pre-foreclosures. It's not that those skills won't translate, but
Mhm.
if you have a completely different like end goal, there's no reason to wait to start on that goal, for right now. There's no reason to like everybody kind of feels like they have to start like wholesaling and whatever. You don't. There's so many ways to be successful in real
Mhm.
estate and in anything really. You don't need to start there.
Mhm. Which makes sense. And that's it's been so hard since I joined. There's so many good things here, and shiny object syndrome is so easy.
Hmm.
I've just been trying to find a way to stay consistently busy, pointed in one direction, while also not just getting overwhelmed. So,
Yeah. Well, I think if you
Well,
flesh out your vision a little bit more
hmm.
and just start going down that path. I would start working towards it now. I wouldn't wait.
then,
You'd be
like you said,
surprised how much money you find when you can explain your vision to other people.
speak it into existence, like you were saying. Go down the rabbit hole that you need to go down, and then just start telling everybody that you run into, like, because Trump's trying to do something kind of similar right now, regardless of your politics. He was talking about starting what he calls the American Academy, which would be like a near free or very, very low cost college accredited courses that would allow you to get an education without the overinflated prices of current college tuition, because they wouldn't accept, like, say, federal student loans or anything like that. So I would say maybe do some research on what he's doing there and go down the rabbit hole of capital raising. I just sent Vishkar's calendar to you, and as well as to Amber, because she messaged me for it too. That, like I said, that's the top of the funnel. You have a 30-minute conversation with him. He'll gauge your interest. He'll put you in a drip campaign with the homework, and the homework is the barrier to entry.
Okay.
And by the way, guys, he'll be our co-host here on this live stream for Cinco de Mayo.
Very
He just texted
nice.
me that
Immigrant
too.
doctor.
Yep, the immigrant doctor will be our co-host
Yeah.
for Cinco de Mayo. Who'd have thought?
I love it. Avishkar is pretty dope, man. And yeah, he's raising money for large multifamilies.
He's super dope. Like, does that answer your question somewhat?
That definitely points me in the right direction. This is like, it's something I've wanted to do since 17. It's just there's not a degree for it. There's not a set path. I didn't know where to start, so I appreciate your guys' insights.
Well, that's what being an entrepreneur is all about, is blazing your own trail, right?
You got this, dude.
Thank you guys so much. I'm repaying that burrito. It's a great burrito.
Pay it forward, dog. I offered to buy him a burrito and I forgot that they were free.
Hey, you still did donate an extra $100 towards that for me though, which is cool. That was
That's true.
a different time in my life.
The $100 dinner club for sure.
Oh, I've done a few of those.
How do you say your name, hon? Is it Nahili?
Nayeli.
Nayeli. Beautiful.
It means I love you. Anyway, I want to say thank you for bringing all the value that you have been already throwing to us right now. It's been incredible. But I have a similar story. I started with these women real estate investing mentorship. I forget what it's called. I think it was the same. And yes, I didn't find as much value as with Paces, obviously. But yeah, that's how I started. And a little bit before that, I was doing a master's degree in real estate finance and investing. So it was all about underwriting multifamilies, apartment buildings. Incredibly difficult, but I got it done. So anyway, I had a disconnect by starting in this mentorship with these women. And as everybody started wholesaling and kind of got distracted from really what I was doing that was really cool in this degree. So fast forward a year after, getting some deals done with wholesaling and why not, I decided that it was not for me. I'm not a salesperson in that capacity, and I don't mind making the calls. There's not a lack of confidence, but it was just not for me.
Right.
Fast forward this year, I was, just recalibrating with my husband. He's a real estate investor as well. He actually teaches real estate investing. And I was like, okay, what's our goals? We do these, quarterly. So being New Year's, I'm like, okay, well, wholesaling is great, but I really want just to do that, just to kind of maybe find the deals that I want to get, that I want to, lend to and be a PMP, or, just because I have a great team and I feel bad already, like firing them, right? So anyway, so one of my goals was getting to the small multifamily and raising capital because as I posted, I don't know if you saw it, but one of our close friends manages funds. I think he has like 17 million that he doesn't know what to really do. So he's like, always bring me deals. And one of my best friends is a capital raiser for one of the biggest multifamily investors in San Diego, California. So we have like 3 deals that she's raising capital in for Salt Lake City. They're big multifamily. So I started getting like, okay, that's what I want to do, right? Now, I don't have the skills, and being a capital raiser and slowly trying to get into that. However, my point is big story, big disclosure to my question to you is you mentioned something that was very important right now. Like being a connector, you also are kind of having to be a little bit help the inexperienced lenders that could be a potential risk.
Mhm.
I am an experienced lender, and I was just telling Adam that I found, we were chatting earlier, and I just found these small multifamily that looks amazing. The person has been incredibly responsive. The communication has been very fast. As a matter of fact, she was like, let's meet in person. It was a totally coincidence that we were in the same place at the right time. So we met, it was great report. She answered all the questions, but now we're at a point where it's like, okay, let's work on the partnership agreement. And the returns are good, everything's good. The due diligence, everything's good. But in terms of, well, I guess first hire a TC would be a great first thing. And
Yeah.
then what else? What am I missing as a lender? What else should I be looking at in order to place myself at the lowest risk possible in terms of that agreement? Like, how do we transition from being a PML to a PMP? And are the terms correct? Am I forgetting anything? Am I doing something that I don't know that I should be doing? You know, those kinds of things.
Right. I mean, that's a lot to unpack, and I don't think I could answer it without more information, but at the end of the day, like the terms are what the two of you agreed to and you both feel good about. I mean, have you had the conversation of the what ifs at minimum? Like, what if this doesn't go as planned, then what? Like, have you had those conversations yet?
That's a great question. No, mostly is like, how are you gonna, because it's a second position, so how are you gonna cross collateralize it with? And she did, I asked for the address, she gave it to me. So all that stuff, but I kind of wanted a little more tighter, like, how can I get it tighter? Things like that.
So we had that issue with our co-living that we were doing the raise for, and I spoke to a lender because they wanted, and I was like, look, what would make you feel safe in this deal? And he was like, for a second position lien, they want a significant amount of interest, right? Like they want to feel safe, and they want to be rewarded for taking that risk. So they want significantly more interest typically, or equity, depending on how you structured, if you're going to PML or the PMP route. And on top of that, they also want significant cross collateral. So usually they'll ask for a first position on the second property, or they'll ask for a second position, but the amount of collateral has to be significant.
She did say that, and she has that. I asked also for reserves in her bank. She did show me bank statements, so she also has that. But I'm wondering, like, what are the conditions where it wouldn't, and then I would have that as a recourse. I mean, I think I need to just start in that. Like, if the deal goes this way, what if? I think the what ifs is exactly what I'm missing. What if this and that? Then okay, we have these reserves, and then we have this cross collateralized. But in case of what? I don't know. Like, those are the things that I really don't know what to ask for.
Well, it could be anything. So I don't know what her exit strategy is or how she intends on repaying you. I'd need to know a lot of that. And really, you should have an attorney be drawing up your promissory note and your deed of trust. And then, like, here's what our terms are. Here's all the what ifs. Here's what, here's the property that we're cross collateralizing, et cetera. I mean, but like step one, because again, I don't know anything about your deal. Do you even know if the first position lender allows a second position on this property? Do you know what that underlying note is, and where does it leave you if something goes wrong and they decide to foreclose? Is there enough meat on the bone for you to get paid back? I mean, there's a lot of questions that I have to be able to even know like where you're at, right? So, I mean, I guess at the end of the day, just have somebody look at it. Here's where most people go wrong. They're so concerned, and I'm not saying this is you. I'm just saying in general. People are so concerned about keeping every little dollar of a deal that they're not willing to go and pay other people for their services or their expertise, right? And I'm not saying that's you, but that's where a lot of people fall trap to being in a crappy situation, because they expect somebody to hop on the phone with them and walk them through the deal, and they don't want to pay them for the value that they're bringing. Now, I'm not saying somebody wouldn't like hop on and just like consult with you for free. But always expect that, guys. Like You know, just because it's easy for them to answer you doesn't mean that they haven't put in a ton of work to get to that point. Just be willing to pay people who know what the hell they're doing, you know, because you can have your slice of the watermelon or you can have a whole grape.
And I completely agree with that. And I'm willing to pay because I do value people's time and effort and 100%. So I just want some guidance in who can I contact, like besides a lawyer, because I'm still going to have my own lawyer, but who else in the community maybe has that service? Or is there any that you guys offer that service that I'm willing to, I just need help to make sure that it's good, but of course, happy to compensate.
Right, and then, you know, make sure that you're talking with a real estate attorney in the state in which the property is located, because that's typically gonna be the state that governs the contract. I mean, that really depends on how you guys have it set up. So you had mentioned something too as well about, you know, transitioning from a PML to a PMP. Like, is that what you guys are discussing? Like you being a partner in the deal and staying in it long term?
Correct. So that thing, it's a seller's finance. So I would come in as a PML for part of the entry fee and a little bit of the construction. So basically the entry fee, and then for 12 months to 18 months, and then the option to stay as a PMP for the rehab because they need to be rehab, and then
Mhm.
come in either all of it for the rehab, or she would manage it. So we're still kind of like depending on
Oh,
who does
yeah, I
what.
know the deal you're talking about.
Mm.
She's a great gal, by the way. I
Yes,
actually talked to her. I'm like, go borrow money. You have money. Go borrow it now when you have money.
yeah, that's the deal.
Yeah.
Nayeli, I also brought Amber up here because she works with capital partners all day long.
Mhm.
And she's one of my favorite people not only in the community, but when it comes to doing raises.
I am very cool. Yes, I've been wanting to talk to you. I was just listening at your Zoom call with Adam. Well, that past Sunday Zoom you guys did. Great value.
Thank you so much. Adam, I raised my hand for a whole different thing. So when you were like,
Oh,
unmute,
I'm sorry. I thought
let
I thought you were coming up for
Cassandra
to
talk to her. No. I have a whole separate comment to make about something Cassandra said earlier, but to your point, I mean, I think there's so many people that can help you. There's vetting sheets out there. I have one if you want to see it. Just that can help you. I have one for vetting the borrower, vetting the deal. I have several things actually. So if you need that, yeah, just DM me so you can cross off some things on your checklist. But I think everything Cassandra said is important as far as just work with other people to help along the way. Sounds like it's a good deal.
Awesome. And
does
I
that
guess
help kind of move you in the right direction, Nayeli?
what's that time?
Does that help kind of move you a little bit in the right direction?
1,000%. I feel definitely more confident about what else to do. But I don't know, Cassandra, if that's a service you offer, obviously. And since you know the deal, maybe it would be great that we could just talk about it a little further if that's
Yeah,
something you want to do.
100%. I'd be happy to help you out with that.
Thank
That
you.
would be my pleasure.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, cool.
So Amber,
Please.
what was your other comment?
Yeah, so I was going back, I put it in the chat, but it feels like a recurring theme based on what the discussion you were just having. Not every deal's for everybody, you
Mhm.
know, and I think that's the biggest lesson that anybody can learn, because you were talking about capital partners, funding partners, and how they all, you were saying that they need to be able to do their due diligence, and some of them, just jump into a deal, and you I don't know if it's a deal you just closed, but you're feeling like, I don't know if this should have been the right thing. But at the end of the day, I think there are extremes to everything. Like a borrower can be too extremist, a funding partner can. Everybody, like you can do. So I've had so many situations at this point where there was a situation a few months ago that I was dealing with where we had a couple different connectors and funding partners in the deal. And it actually changed the closing attorney and how they interact with my borrower, because so many people called them for little tiny questions that they had already asked me about.
Mm.
And it overwhelmed the closing attorney, and they literally took my borrower out and everyone in our circle. They took them each to dinner and said, you have too many people. I don't know who these Gators and Paces community are, but they
Mm.
call and we're not getting paid for that. Like we're paid by billable hours, and we're having long, lengthy conversations for 20 different people. So
Right.
each one of them would have a transaction coordinator. Those transaction coordinators would call the the funding partners themselves would call, the connectors would call. And we didn't even know that all these calls were happening until the attorney said, I'm not doing this. Like, this is a
Yeah.
circus. This is ridiculous. And that's too much. Like, that's too extreme. You can't but yeah, we're taught call, verify, but you've got to be coordinated and communicative. Like, you can't just feel like it's a bad deal, so I need to verify and I'm going to go outside of everybody to do it. If you're going to me, lend on a deal and you want to talk to the attorney or whatever makes you feel comfortable, I think it's okay to tell the borrower you're going to be doing that. And I think it's okay to tell the connectors you're going to be doing that and the transaction coordinator, so that there can be a coordinated communication. Maybe you can record it. But now this particular borrower, so on the next deal, that my borrower had to pay for a separate attorney for $30,000 just to answer questions because of the circus that this happened. You know what I mean? Like,
Wow.
so that was a bad look. Like, that was a bad look for the community, I felt like. And then
Yeah.
it's too much. So I feel like everybody should do their due diligence for sure. But I think reasonableness, and it goes back to what you said about just being communicative. Like, communicate with everybody. If you don't like the deal and if you don't trust the borrower, don't do it. But
Right.
don't wreck their deal. And don't just and yes, you can trust but verify. You can be suspicious about everything, but don't get to the point where it's like overwhelming for everyone in there. If it's a deal you don't feel comfortable with, just be honest and say, this is not what I feel comfortable doing. And there's always going to be another deal. I've happily told so many people, I don't think this is the deal for you. And
Right.
I don't mind saying that. Like, I respect everybody in a deal and choosing to say no. Like, if somebody says, I don't feel comfortable because of this, I'm okay with that. Because I don't want them in the deal if they don't feel comfortable, because you never know what's going to happen. Like, I want everyone to feel comfortable, legitimately. Like, I want everybody to have a happy experience. And and if I don't know, now I'm just talking, but
100% though, 100%. Because otherwise then everybody's gonna be miserable and on edge throughout the entire deal. So what's the point? So even if it was a good deal, like I said, or like you said, it could be not the right deal for that person because maybe they don't understand the strategy, maybe they don't understand the asset class, they're just not comfortable with that. Like, I have a personal friend who now wants to lend on real estate deals, and I've been talking to him about it for years, and I finally found an asset class that he's comfortable with, and that's land, vacant land, just wholesaling it. When I start talking to him about projects like smaller multifamilies or single families, he's like overwhelmed, and even though it's like, look, I found a deal where I think it would be good for you, as opposed to just sitting in your freaking bank account earning 0.001%, like, he's like, I don't know. And I'm like, yeah, it's not the deal for you, because now you're going to be on edge the entire time. And that's going to stress me out. It's going to stress your borrower out. You're going to be stressed out. Like, it's not worth it. And at the end of the day, guys, you always just have to operate from abundance. There are more people out there. There are more deals out there. If this one doesn't work, it's fine. You've
Then
learned
everyone
something,
has a
you need to
different
move on.
idea of how to assess risk, right? Like that, like you just said, if that money is sitting in their bank account, they might feel like that's secure.
Mhm.
But I try to think like Andy Frisella talks about all the time. It's not, you don't assess risk based on what happens if you do. You assess risk based on what happens if you don't do,
Mhm.
right? Like, if he leaves that money sitting in a bank account, he's getting eaten alive by inflation. That's just reality. There's
Right.
no stock portfolio right now. There's no bonds. There's no treasury. Nothing is going to save you unless you go out and you put that money to work somewhere where it can actually earn you more money. And
But that's
right
not
now,
something that's taught. We're not taught how to be investors. Like, we're barely taught how to be financially literate. You know what I mean? And
most of us aren't
unless
even
you,
taught that.
right, exactly. That's what I'm saying. I mean, I think I remember learning how to write a check back in grade school and like kind of how to balance your checkbook. But that's about it. I mean, you could take a finance class in college or whatever, but it doesn't teach you how to use your money wisely. You know what I mean? And this particular gentleman is not an investor. You know, he's retired military, retired from a second job, and he's just like, yeah, I got, you know, 250K sitting in my account. I'm like, why? You know, but he doesn't know, right? And it's just like they'll hire a financial advisor at Schwab or whatever, and they're like, yeah, buy some T-bonds and put them into the stock portfolio and whatever. I mean, that's okay, right? It's not like that's wrong.
Well, at the
But
end
you
of the
know,
day, they keep it there because it looks good, right? Like
right.
that's optics are everything to most people, and perception is reality. So if you can show somebody like I have 250 grand sitting in a bank account, well, that's great until it's worth pennies in like 10 years.
Right. Right.
It's just
But,
what
you
it
know,
is.
thinking long term is difficult for a lot of people, you know? Um, so yeah, it's just one of those things. It's just find something that makes sense to them. You got to be able to speak their language. And everybody, like we have industry jargon, right? But everybody has their own dialect too. And that's what you guys will find, you know, especially if you're working in a connector space where you're raising money for somebody else's deals, is that although there's industry-wide jargon and terminology that you expect, you know, when I'm talking to, they're like, what the hell do you mean by this? You know, and they just have a different dialect. Like I was having a conversation about a new development project I was vetting, right? And I haven't done new development before. So I went and found somebody who does and be like, help me look at this because I don't know how to analyze this deal, right? And how to, if I were to raise money for it, how to make sure that the lender is secured, et cetera. And he was just flabbergasted by the underwriting sheet. And he's like, you got monkeys and giraffes in this pen where it should be cats and dogs. And I'm like, okay, you know, but then I've seen, it's not like I haven't seen that terminology elsewhere. So I'm just like, okay, it became more abundantly clear that everybody's got their own language, and like part of being a connector is being able to translate that.
I agree. And my only point, and then you can flip me back to the small screen, is that I think having that conversation up front about even how much you want to be communicated with is important. I just learned that recently. Someone asked me if, as a connector, if I'm going to be communicating every week. And I was like, no, I didn't plan to communicate every week. I can. And they said, well, I was working with another connector who did that. And so I followed up and I said, do you talk to the borrower every week as well? Or how does that work? And they said, no, I've never met the borrower. And I was like, really? And she was like, no, I mean, we haven't met. I go through the connector. And I said, well, then I'm a different connector. So I just want to let you know, I immediately connect borrowers and lenders, because if something goes wrong, I do not believe the first time you should meet the person that you lend to is if something goes wrong. That scares me even just thinking about it.
Yeah.
I said, so it does make sense that the connector you're working with communicates on a weekly basis, because you don't even know who you've lent money to, right? Like I was like, my borrower communicates pretty regularly, at least once a month, plus maybe 2 or 3 times a month. I was like, if you want more, let's put it in the contract. But if not, you know, I can certainly also, you know, do it every week. I just need to know that up front. But, you know, I didn't want to be like, I think I would say to the group at whole, like, don't judge someone for not communicating every week if that's not the expectation you set out. Because it's like you said, Cassandra, we all have different dialects. Like every connector operates differently. Some do not connect the lender and the borrower. And that's absolutely not what I do. So, you know, like, so you can't have the same expectations of every deal, and you can't, and there's different risk in every deal, and you have to know what your level of risk is for sure. I'm about to lend at the end of this month on an arbitrage deal, and I'm going to say it, and you all can gasp, but I'm going to save my borrower some fees, and I'm going to send her the money directly straight to her, not through escrow, because it's an arbitrage deal. It's already risky. She's going to give me cross collateral. I know her. I work with her. She's a friend. We go out for drinks. I know where the bodies are buried. So I feel like I'm going to get my money back. And if not, I have some recourse separate from this. But am I going to be a friend and save her some fees and just wire the money directly to her account? Yes. But I'm comfortable with that because of the history, not because of anything else. And I'm not going to be making one of those posts if something goes wrong and say, I should have done this. I'm not going to do that. I already know what I should do. I know what I should do. I know what I shouldn't do. I'm willing to take the risk. You know what I mean? So
Right, right. Interesting. On an arbitrage deal, huh? So you're gonna be a partner?
I'm not going to be a partner. I am going to lend for the furnishings for the Airbnb, and she's going to pay me back. And if she
Okay,
doesn't pay me back, then that'll be a big life lesson for me.
right.
I'll keep you updated, but
Well,
I
if you go
feel
out for drinks, you know where to bust her kneecaps, right?
exactly. So I feel good about it. I feel okay about it.
Little Tanya
But
Harding
it,
her ass.
But Amber, you said a really good point, and that's that like we're not just translating the dialects, we're managing the expectations, right?
Mhm.
Because my deal that did go south, after the lender pulls her money out of escrow, I had a separate conversation with her, and she's like, "Well, this other connector did this, and he did that, and he did da, 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 da." And I said, "You didn't tell me you wanted any of that. Like, what did you expect? I told you what I could do. I connected you with them. I tried to get y'all to sit down together. You circumvented my communication channel. Like, there's not a whole lot I can do to save face or save a relationship, right? If I connect, let's just say I connected Amber and Cass here, and they're having some kind of difficulties. Well, if Amber goes around the group chat that I put the three of us in, and she says, and she starts pointing the finger at Cass and calling Cass all kinds of mean names and whatever. And then Cass starts forwarding me screenshots, and Amber's forwarding me screenshots. What the hell am I supposed to do with that? Like, that's just one big jumbled mess that I can't untangle that, not in a day and not in a week for sure. It's
Well,
just too
it's
much.
a good point, and it's just something that we should add to our list, right? Of how we begin a relationship with people and work with them, because we're gonna learn something new on every deal, and you're gonna be like, I'm gonna add that to my list. And asking people, how often do you want to communicate? And also how? Do you want a phone call? Do you want an email? Do you want a text message? Do you want me to send you a carrier pigeon? Like,
Smoke
people
signals.
don't know what they don't know, but they just think that their expectation in their brain is something you automatically know and should know, right? So it's almost like you kind of have to baby people and be like, okay, let me ask you these questions. And they might be annoyed at first, but man, it just makes it so much more freaking easy when you're in the deal. Like I started me and a couple of girls were going to start a wholesaling company where we were doing PPC. So we were paying a company to run our Facebook page and bring in, warm leads, right? And they were kind of mad at me on how like I was dipping into the minutia of our operating agreement, like who's responsible for talking to our bookkeeper, who's responsible for talking to the company if our Facebook page gets shut down, who's responsible for this and this. They're like, do we really have to do this? I'm like, yes, because here's what's going to happen if we don't is we're all going to think that one of us is going to pick up the ball on it and then nobody picks up the ball and then we're going to be pointing fingers and blah blah blah. So it's like at the end of the day, you know laying that all out and saying you don't have to personally do it, you just have to make sure it gets done. I don't care who you delegate it to or whatever, or maybe you even come to us partners and say, hey, this needs to get done, can you guys help me with XYZ? Is really important so that when we're in the middle of it, right, we're not wondering, okay, now who's responsible for this. So it's the same thing with setting up, a borrowing. Hey, Van, I saw you sneak in, girl. Um, it's the same thing when you're setting up a borrowing contract or, a lending contract is it feels like minutia, but on a first time, like it's totally worth doing.
Well, then it comes back to proactively communicating, right? Like we said, you can't wait until things go wrong. Like the borrowers in my situation, they waited until the lender didn't feel safe to offer the lender to structure the paperwork however she wanted. But by that point, she had seen too much disorganization, so she pulled out anyway.
Mhm.
Like, how
It is
you
what it
can't
is,
save
right?
that, guys. There's no way. If I'm that upset with you, like if I tell you I'm gone, I'm gone.
Mhm.
And most people are that way because they have to be. They have to protect their own time and their peace.
100%.
I mean, whether you're a borrower, a lender, a connector, I think that you just like don't expect you learn something every time. Like there's not one deal that I haven't learned from. So don't expect everybody to be perfect either, and
Right.
know what's in your brain. Like if you, before you jump to, I don't think they're doing something right, then say, this is what I would like to see. And if you communicate that and then they don't meet that expectation, then it's on them. But the more deals I do, we just closed an 88 unit Friday, and
Ooh.
it was one of the toughest deals we have ever done in our lives, in my lifetime, which has been a year in real estate. So a little over a
I'm
year.
happy to bring you moral support, Amber.
Yes, thank you. It was really tough, but I learned so much just about managing people and differences, and it was so hard. And I'm working other jobs, and there were a lot of people to manage too in this deal, with connectors and funding partners and the borrower and the whole team there, and 2 different closing attorneys, and it was like 2 different transaction coordinators as well. It was like managing a lot. And so I learned, and I don't think I did it perfectly, for sure. And I learned some things through that I will now implement and be better. So I guess what I'm saying is, everybody is on a learning curve. So don't expect people to be perfect. And if there's something you don't like, say, I don't like how this is going. Let's do it differently. Let's make it better. And I think that communication goes a long way. That's just the summary of that. So
Yeah. And you guys, this is why,
proactive.
yeah, right. This is why Amber is so successful, you guys, is because here's another thing that happens, right? Just like you were saying, don't expect other people to be perfect. We learn something, and then because we're new at it, we're so rigid. Like, I don't know how many times I could hear it's like, okay, you're literally pulling exactly what Pace said on a Zoom 2 weeks ago, but it's not in the proper context. So let's talk through it, right? But they're like, well, I know you're wrong because X, Y, Z and blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, you have to be fluid and you have to understand context. And when you're newer, like, I get it. Like, we apply things incorrectly sometimes, but that's how all of us can be just as successful, as realize, like, you can't be a freaking robot, and there's context to everything. So when you learn something, it is the guideline, and then the real true skill is figuring out how to apply it. It's like learning calculus, which, by the way, I dropped out of Calc 2 in college. I was getting a D no matter what I did. It was terrible. And I thought to myself, I was like, it's one thing to learn how to work these equations, but to actually apply calculus in real life is like mind blowing, right? Like, my
It's
math
frustrating.
professor is telling me how she figured out the volume of a freaking holding tank to do something at her house. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, never in my life am I going to be this good at this. You know what I'm saying? So you can
Likewise.
learn the equation, but you have to realize the context that goes behind it. So it's just important. So now I'm just repeating myself, but yeah.
Well, and I'll give you guys something else too. You can't have proactive communication without extreme ownership. That was one of the biggest issues that I faced in that deal. Was the borrowers were deferring to the TC, and the TC was not detail oriented in the way the lender wanted. The lender kept claiming that they were being proactive in communicating, but was not. They were not responsive. I could not get them on the phone. The borrowers couldn't get them on the phone, couldn't get the lender on the phone. But the lender's saying, "Oh, I reached out to y'all. I reached out to y'all." And it's like, guys, we're all human. We all have stuff to do. I don't need the 10:30 at night phone calls from the lender asking me what the hell is going on. Like, we have a group chat for a reason. Take your part in this, regardless of what side you're on. Because I admitted, I was like, I probably could have done this cleaner. The borrowers admitted, they were like, we probably could have done this cleaner. Let's fix this. Let's get a new TC on. Let's get all new paperwork drafted up. We can have it drafted in an hour, and we can close this deal. And the lender's like, yeah, but I did everything I was supposed to do. You will never get another deal if that's your attitude. You just won't.
Yeah, and I think that also lends to the point too that, guys, it's okay to set your own boundaries, and you should, because otherwise you're going to burn out real quick. I mean, I feel like I'm just going to say this, and I'm just going to speak for everyone. And if you don't like it, oh well. But if you're hanging out with us and you're trying to be a connector, you damn well better be looking to provide as much value as possible. Because when I speak to people being like, that's not my job, I'm like, I don't want to hang out with you. I don't want to hang out with you, man. because it is your freaking job. It is our job. If we're going to dip our hands into a honeypot that doesn't belong to us, we need to bring as much value as possible. So that even if it isn't your job, like you need to find somebody who can help make it work, right? Because obviously the people who are relying on you have communicated that they need it. You know what I'm saying? So whether you're doing it personally or you're delegating it, it's whatever. But with that being said, you should also have your own personal boundaries, and don't do deals where people want to, ignore your boundaries, because no amount of money is worth that.
Nope. Your sleep, your health, your mental well-being, it's worth so much more than whatever that fee might be. Even if it could be $2,000, it could be $3,000, it could be 30 grand, guys. Like, don't do deals with people you don't want to do deals with. Like I was telling y'all about the deals I backed out of. They were instant core value violations. I was like, nah, dude, if you don't align with me on these like 4 or 5 things, one of them being that we can communicate like adults calmly and you can answer questions in a timely manner, there's no reason. Like, why would we continue to work together? I know it's going to be a disaster before we start.
Yeah. I mean, I might let somebody call me Sally for like a 6-figure consulting fee, but don't be yelling at me, dog.
What would
Right,
you do?
but like,
What would you take for yelling?
For yelling?
Yeah.
Shit, you better be my sugar daddy forever. Like, I never want anything again.
Like,
I need you
do
to,
you have a price tag on that? 500,000, 600,000.
nah, just whatever I say, that's you got to be willing to do it. Then you can yell at me all you want. Like, yep, yell at me now, replace my janky hip. And I'm starting to get
Cass is
plantar
like, I need a new
fasciitis in
hip.
my feet too. I want weekly massages and acupuncture.
Yeah.
Along with a beachfront property. Is that what
I
we're
don't care
hearing?
about any of that. Just give me a fenced yard for my dogs. I'd live in a shack. I don't need some big house to dust.
Oh, not the truth.
You know,
Bigger the house, the more it is
right?
dusty.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they're like, well, just get them made. And I'm like, yeah, I guess, but
That's funny.
just
And
give me a
Cass, you were
shack
my,
and give me a yard. I'm happy.
Appreciate it. Good to see you, Cassandra, as always. Thanks,
you
Adam.
hopping out.
You
All right,
too.
later, Amber.
Hopping back to the little. Well, I just don't need to be on the main stage anymore. Kick
Gotcha.
it back to Cassandra.
De-highlight her.
She did great.
What else we want to talk about? Anybody have any other questions or anything? Or
Well, Cass, you were apologizing to me last time for intruding on the co-host, and Amber came up and we had a good little riff on that one. So
I couldn't be happier.
actually, all 3 of my co-hosts are here because Emma's in the room too.
Yeah, what up, girl?
My favorite
So good to
game
be
play
here, guys.
my new favorite game to play is Have You Met Emma? For those
I
of
love
y'all,
that game.
for those of y'all who don't know, let's bring Emma up because she's awesome. Why not? For those of y'all that don't know, Emma has been networking the hell out of herself lately and killing it.
Yes.
And she went on that journey because Ashley Madison pushed her to do it at the beginning of the year. And what are you up to now, girl? Last I talked to you was like what, 180?
Yeah, it's a lot. I think I've stopped counting how many individuals I've reached out to and how many calls that I've had. But yeah, in that first phone call and first Zoom that we did, I kind of broke down what I'm doing to keep track of those, right? Because the number one thing that I'm seeing in all of my networking is people forget that they even networked with you in the first place, right? You're just picking up the phone call, talking to the next person, hanging up, and then you're completely forgetting that name and how they pertain to your life and your business. And so I the last 2 or 3 weeks, I've actually had a lot of people reach out to me and say, hey, can I have that Google form that you fill out every time you're on a new call? I'm like, sure. I'll send you I have a shareable option, set aside where I can send it over to you and you can take a look at it and utilize it whatever way you need. Because when Pace says go out and make 50 friends, you don't make 50 acquaintances and then forget them. Like a friend is somebody you actually know and you understand what they're doing. You need more oats and blueberries. Oh my goodness. Well, you're gonna have to
Yeah, a friend is that ride or die, right, Emma?
right.
Like you said,
yeah.
You and I connected and we didn't just end it at that call.
No.
We spit value for as long as we had. I think we had a 30-minute time slot. We probably went closer to an hour,
Yeah.
but we had a lot of fun. And at the end of it, one of the questions you asked me was like, well, how do we stay in touch? Like, what does that look like
Yes.
going forward? And that's
Exactly.
critical to any relationships.
Yeah,
Yeah, we
it's so
actually had
true.
people cancel our follow-up call, be like, well, we just talked a couple of weeks ago. I'm like, okay, so you don't want to
Yeah.
ever talk again?
I know. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, I thought we were vibing, we're not, or what? And they're like, oh, no, but it's just like we had already talked, nothing was really changed. And I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
So I guess too, oh my God, here's
I
what drives
had
me
one of
nuts.
those follow-up calls recently with somebody
Yeah.
that, on my tracker, it was more of a lower level. Didn't seem like they were going to need a TC or an operator at that time, but I still was doing that like at least a monthly follow-up with everyone. And during that phone call, it became very apparent that she is fully aware of what you need to have discussion about as a new gator if you're creating a new LLC with other gators to gator wrestle, right? And so she has this knowledge and experience that she's had to go through and learn over time.
Mhm.
And she's like, hey, if you ever do a gator Zoom, I would love to teach new individuals about what I've learned from my mistakes. And it just so happens that I have somebody in the Gator community who has done Zooms with me in the past for newbies. And I said, hey, let me get you connected. Like, you need to speak to this person. Let's make it happen, right? Like, let's share that knowledge that you've got. Nothing to do with TC. Like, nothing
Right.
to, I'm not TCing for her, but I have a connection that she needs and she wants to share her knowledge. Well, I know how to get that out there. So it's always important to pick up that call and make those follow-ups happen.
Yeah. Even if you're not a connector to
Yeah.
everyone, like, and I've had that mistake too. I've talked to so many people in the, in the 2.5 years I've been in SubTo, that yeah, sometimes you forget and it's like, okay, is it weird now to follow up? And I'm just like, screw it. Like, one of the things I do in this group that I'm in, it's like the daily log of what you're doing. One of the things is, who can I reach out to today? What random person? And it's like, I'm like, man, I haven't talked to this person in like 2 years. I'm gonna send them a note, see how their business is doing, like see how
Yeah.
their life is going. It's never too late. Just do it, right? You can, the best time to start good practices was yesterday, but the next best time is now. So keep that
I
up.
love that.
I wish that we could force everybody to go into JJ's like social media 101 when they join any of the mentorships, because he has a huge networking platform, his own page, all those things. But one of the things, he teaches about how to brand yourself with your social media, how to make comments that actually show his contribution. But the biggest thing is like, don't just friend people, dude. Friend people and send them a
Yes.
message about who you are or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I get like 85 freaking friend requests a day. And then I have to go
Same.
through and be like, hey, thanks for the ad. Like, what motivated you to reach out? And they're just like, oh yeah, I saw your
Right.
chat. I'm like, cool. You want to tell me more? Like,
Yes.
It's funny you bring up JJ because you're talking about JJ Azizian, right?
Yeah.
I made that mistake when I first got into the community, like week 1. I just kind of sent him a friend request and he's like, yeah, bro, like, what do you want?
Yeah.
He said it
Yeah.
nicer than that, but I was like, I made that mistake. We've all tripped over ourselves and made that mistake because
Yep.
it's different every group and every mentorship, right? Like, I was in business coaching groups where everybody just kind of adds everybody and they start, but also inside those groups, it's much more of a big pitch fest. And so as a result, like, I get the friend request now and I have to vet the people because I don't know if I'm getting added from the business groups or from SubTo. And if it's from the business groups, there's a likelihood I'm just going to get beat over the head with a sales pitch. And
Yeah.
I can tell you right now, that's the quickest way to get cursed out and blocked.
Right. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, I don't care what any of you guys join going in the future. Having a culture of wanting to build a relationship with people is going to make sure that you're more successful than the person who's not.
Yeah.
So, you can join affiliate marketing tomorrow. If you're reaching out to people and just like friend requesting them, then you're not really adding any value to yourself or them, besides maybe clogging up your algorithm. You know what I mean? Seeing things that you don't like, seeing what they ate for lunch on Tuesday, which is cool, but it would be helpful if you knew why you were friends with them.
I got, sorry.
Well, and that's why I love like the way that Em and I connected because it was so genuine, right? Like, Emma and I think, and you too, Cass, like everyone here is trying to be the best person they can online and present themselves as who they are in person. And you two both, I had the same experience with both of y'all. Like Cass, as soon as we got on the phone, we just started laughing and cutting up for what? The same thing, like an hour and 15.
Mm-hmm.
We steamrolled whatever the time limit was. I think you booked me for a 15-minute call.
Yeah.
But because like all these ladies that are here and the guys too are so genuine, right? Like that's why we play the Have You Met Emma game, because every
Right.
time I talk to somebody that's looking for a TC, there's one person that is top of mind because she adds the most value every time I have a question.
Yeah. That's what I've been telling him on my phone calls lately is like, listen, I grew up in the Midwest with the attitude of yes, sir, yes, ma'am. If I don't know an answer for you, I'm going to go find the answer. There's always somebody out there that has the answer. And why not me? Like, why am I not going and finding that answer for you? And so that being able to have added value, it should be your number one goal every day is how do I add value to somebody? How do I get them the answer that they're needing? And you have to present yourself as a person who is willing to go out and find the answers for them. You just can't be like, oh, you're not doing anything for me, so I'm not going to do anything for you, right? And that gets you nowhere in life.
No, it sure doesn't.
So,
And there's always moderation, right? I mean, I've had friends say you give so much, like you don't get anything in return, and I'm like, it'll come around eventually. But you can let people walk all over you too. So it's kind of hard to figure out where that line is. But at the end of the day, if you're operating in abundance, like it's just got to come back at some point.
I think the line is in the vetting, right? Like I was saying earlier, there's two different kinds of messages that come through my inbox every day. One is like, are you open to another business opportunity? Like, absolutely not. Get out. You're done.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But I have to be ruthless with my time in that sense, because that allows me to give back and be joyful and laugh with all the other people that want to connect with me, want to fill my cup, that I can pour back into them. So you got to be ruthless on the front end. And the moment somebody's like core value violation, boom, gone, out the door, throw them right out the window, and don't let them clog up your feed. Don't let them clog up your inbox. Just tell them, you got to go find somebody else. And that's it. Just keep rolling with it and guys, when you get that impulse, like I think of that all the time. I'll be like walking the dog or something. I'm like, I should text Emma this. So I'll just shoot her a quick text because I know, right? Like she might not be able to answer the phone, but chances are if I send her a text, it's non-intrusive. It's not an ask. It's just like, hey, I was thinking of you. And I wanted to tell you this. And that's all it is. It's making small deposits.
Yeah, 100%. And it's okay that a relationship isn't like giving back to you, or it's just one-sided, to just kind of end it. There's a couple of people that I know of, and they're not bad people, but they've taken so much from me, and not even, it's almost like they're entitled to my information, to my experience, without so much as even a thank you. And as much as I could help those people, I don't want to anymore, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you can't even send me a thank you, dog. Like,
Or they want to talk over you. One guy called me the other day and he's like, what can I bring to you? What can I bring to you? I want to know so we can do deals together. And it's like, bro, you're up here. Take it down to here. I need you to like even out, slow down, tell me what you're doing. What do you have? What do you need? The solution is in the middle of those two things.
Mm-hmm.
Like you come out of it like a rabid dog. Like you're not gonna get anywhere, guys. It's just how it goes.
I have no idea what you can give me because I don't have any idea what you do.
Right. It's just like dating, right?
Yeah.
You don't just tell them on Tinder like, hey, you want to come over to my place? Like, no, bro. You take them on a date. You get to know who they are. You go on several dates.
That's what Tinder's for. Get out of here.
I mean, you're not wrong, but just
it's totally like you want to Netflix and chill.
Right, Johnny. Johnny said such bad example.
Right. It's terrible.
Oh, it's Johnny.
We're talking about OK Cupid.
Oh, really? Because that's so much better.
Or like find your wife or husband or whatever. Christian mingle, there we go. Or farmers only.
I don't know, dude. Trust me, dating and running a business and being in real estate is not fun at this point.
I'm single. I can't. I got 2 dogs. That's enough. Like, I can't handle other people's neediness. Like,
Cass, maybe we should just become passport bros. We'll go travel abroad. You find a husband, I'll find a wife. We'll come back. We'll all be good.
right? Like I said, we're the same person. You just have the beard and I have the boobs, so it totally makes sense that we travel together. Amber's face, she's like, "Oh no, I did. I had to."
Amber's like, did she say that on a recording?
Oh, that's right. We're recorded. Hi, everyone. I'm a woman and I'm biologically built like one.
Well,
Okay, enough of that. Onward, onward.
I like to share I had an experience with a connector that was mind-blowing for me, in a good way, that they were coming and they were asking lots of questions, and I was giving them the time of day and doing some research for them and getting back to them. And suddenly I opened up my phone with a text message that said, "You received $50 from this individual via Apple Cash," And then it followed up with a text of, I just wanted to say thank you. Like, some way, like, I know you're not even in this deal at all. I'm not hiring you as a TC, but like, I know that you've added so much to my understanding now. And here you go. Go get yourself some coffee. Go buy a good bottle of bourbon. Like, whatever you're gonna do with it, like, go for it. And so, that's the kind of person, right, that you want to keep in your life and that you want to keep growing that relationship with.
Mm-hmm.
Emma, I'm hurt. I think I still have your Google number.
I need to get you my other number. Come on. Actually, I think it's on the screen. I always forget that my Zoom has my personal cell phone, and then my Blink has my Google Voice number. So snag it.
I've been texting that number. I was like, I just thought she was an Android user, and I was like, no, I'm pretty sure she's on.
No,
I'm pretty sure Pace won't pick on her.
No. I like Google Voice because it gives me a chance to kind of have a backup. When you're dealing with people and you need that little bit of security, all of the text messages go to my Gmail account that is attached with my business. So if I ever need to go back and verify and prove that somebody has told me something on a deal, especially as a TC, I can go back and say, actually, I have this text right here that says this, and that's contradictory to what you're saying. When it's on my my personal cell phone, that makes it a little bit trickier. Google Voice just automatically gives me a copy of it to file away in case of emergency.
It does make it trickier, but at least iMessage is searchable too. That's a huge leg up.
Yeah.
Kinda. I think Android messages were more easy to be searchable. I don't really like iPhone search function, to be honest with you, but I got bullied into getting an iPhone after joining SubTo, so.
By somebody whose name starts with P, right?
Yeah. Well, honestly, he would always talk smack and it was whatever. I just kind of laughed it off. But after
P ends with Pace.
Yeah, after traveling to so many meetups and things like that, and everybody has their freaking iPhone, like when you get into group messages with people, you're staying at an Airbnb or whatever, it is a disaster nightmare when you're an Android in those message streams, because when they're doing the emoji reacts, it just repeats everything that was said. So it's like 4 people love the same message. Then you're going back to try to find, like, where's the things I need to read right now? I got so irritated with that. And like when people were just airdropping stuff and I'm like, could you send it to me? They're like, I finally got a freaking iPhone, right? That and being able to text on a plane is pretty cool.
Some free integrator game for y'all though. If you have an iPhone and a Mac, it makes everything so easy. Like the integrations are seamless. And I just downloaded Arc browser the other night too for my Mac, and that has been a huge game changer too.
Yeah,
Arc browser is only available for Mac though. It's one of those. It's like a productivity and a privacy browser at the same time.
I need to get a freaking Mac too. I've been thinking about it because I have to send myself links all the time. Like you should see my own personal Facebook Messenger. Like I used to send myself recipes to remember. Now I have 8,000 Zoom links in that sucker because I'm like, thanks for texting it to me. Let me get it to my computer. It's what a nightmare.
Sandra,
Oh,
I'm with you
Lordy.
there. Like I've had to, so my Mac is down. I have a Mac and I have a PC. I'm on a PC right now. And Shane Evans and I, when we're trying to figure out our podcast and doing everything, he's sending me links and I'm like, send him at least Facebook Messenger because I can get that. And he's like, get a Mac every time. And I'm like, shut up. Please just send it correctly.
Right.
Please.
Yeah.
Like,
Guys,
yeah, get along.
those tools have changed my life. Having the iPhone and the Mac integrate together along with the Arc browser and Motion, because Motion merges all my calendars. And, that was what Emma and I talked about on the
Yeah.
first episode, was just being super intentional with your networking. Like, if you have things that integrate together smoothly, you don't even really need a CRM. Not saying that you shouldn't have one. By all means, get one if you need it. However, before you go spend the $200, $300,000 a month, whatever the hell they cost now, because they're all different, like start with just getting a few pieces of hardware that work well together.
Yeah.
Word.
And I
then-
always love throwing this out there. Trello has a free version that's just one person, right? So if you need something basic, like Trello is great. I use Notion. A lot of people don't know about Notion. It is free, and I have different tabs on the side that are for different things. So my husband is getting ready to do a PML business, and so I have a tab started to be able to track that stuff. And then I have my TC related stuff, and then I have my marketing or my potential like networking tab. And so there are free things out there that you can use. Just ask people in the community, right? Like, what are you using that's free? Because I'm new and I want to keep my money liquid for deals, and I don't want to boggle up every charge that I, out there each month for all these additional platforms.
It adds up quick, man. And I look at my business credit card, I'm like, holy shit, I have a lot of subscriptions I'm not even using. And it's like, I gotta go knock that
Purge.
off. For sure.
It's that, and then when you find a platform that you really, really love and you're willing to stand behind, and I look at affiliate marketing the same way I look at being a connector, right? Like, I wouldn't want to represent somebody that would represent me poorly. And likewise, if I recommend you a software, especially if I have an affiliate link, which usually gives you some kind of benefit up front, whether it's an extended free trial or what have you, I would not send that to you if I didn't use it and love it.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's also assuming that people love what you love, Adam.
Well, that's why I tell people, it's like, look, Cass, this might be good for you and you might like it. Try it, see if you do. And if you don't, it's no hard feelings.
Right.
Right.
The age old, like, what CRM are you using? I love it when I see those messages like in SubTo or Gator. It's like, just find what you like, dude, because 8,000 people are going to give you a different answer and it doesn't matter. It's just what you like and what you can afford. Just none of it matters. At the end of the day. But yeah, Calendly has been getting on my last nerve. So I think I might move over to Motion because it's so hard to integrate all my different calendars. It's not always syncing up. And sometimes it sends a confirmation email that you have to accept in order for it to put it on your calendar. And sometimes it doesn't. And it's a whole.
I found usually like in the event cast that if I'm using Calendly and you're using Calendly, if I book on your calendar, it's a bitch and a half to get your link onto my calendar. Whereas if you booked on my calendar, right there, it's on my iCalendar automatically.
Yeah.
Because it did that to me the other day with Jill Jensen.
Yeah.
I booked on her calendar and I could not get her event on my calendar for the life of me. And then I finally got it after like 3 or 4 tries.
Yeah. It is tough. It is tough. But that's part of living, right? If it was easy, then shoot, everybody would do it.
So true.
So true. Well, shoot, if your husband's setting up a PML business, what's the lend box? I'm sure all of us want to borrow your monies.
Yeah, we're working on that. We're working on we have an individual in our life that actually has the finances. They have a good nest egg and they just don't have the time to learn and lend. And we had a small amount, and so we were like, hey, let's make an LLC together. Let's put all the money in one box. Let's talk about what our lending parameters will be, right? Because what's comfortable for us versus what's comfortable for this other individual. We need to kind of come to a neutral ground. And then we'll get out there. So as soon as it's up and running, I'm definitely going to be sharing it with everyone. And getting out there. The one thing that we will be doing is, you know, a lot of our main intake requester is going to be a background check. And so if anybody's ever looking for a lesser version, like a cheaper version than what Mel is putting out there, I do have a couple options that I save tucked away. If you can, so Mel's passport, if you're doing 400,000 or more on lending or borrowing, you do need that passport. That's pretty straightforward. But she does have a cheaper option. It's like $350. And you just have to reach out to her and ask for that. But she won't give that to you unless you're below that $400,000, you know, mark. So just FYI. And then I do have another link that I send individuals that are asking, but it's going to become more and more apparent, you know, more and more needed from individuals that are asking to borrow, that those lenders are going to start asking for this regularly, right? So
Right.
I've been talking to a lot of my connector friends, and I'm just like, hey, I'll give you my list of lenders that I already have just from my networking, but you can't use them unless the person that's borrowing the money has some sort of background check that they can just go ahead and provide up front. And so that is one of our little checks that we want to see checked off on our intake before we're willing to lend.
Right. Yeah, because
Yeah.
it's I think
Emma,
yeah,
don't tell me your lending box is only EMD, by the way.
No, it's
Because
not. It's not gonna
if
be
you end up becoming one of those people, I'm gonna reach across there, I'm gonna smack
a
you.
smack.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because I can't tell you how many times I get the request like in the DMs like, hey guys, if you know anybody I'm only lending on EMD deals right now because I have like $10,000 to lend. It's like, bro, you probably shouldn't be lending then because that's such a high risk gamble.
That's like going to one of those beaches in Florida during the gator mating season, and like every gator is like wanting EMD, and it's like like nobody's like, only one of you is gonna get lucky and get that deal. I'm sorry, like you have to have other options that you're willing to lend on, because it's
yeah,
there's so many other needs out there, right? And
Well, people
yeah,
forget, right? If you can lend on small deals, you know who else can lend on small deals? Everybody else above you.
yeah,
Like, if Cass has a $10,000 pool and I have a $300,000 pool, yeah, I can lend on some really big
yeah,
pool deals. But you know what? I can also eat Cass's lunch if she's trying to just lend on EMDs. Like,
yeah,
don't lose
exactly,
your ass, guys. Come on.
yeah,
it's tough. I mean, I think it's the same thing of like when people get into real estate investing, they think they have to wholesale first, right? They think they have to cold call. You know, there's like, oh yeah, you know, I want to start with this because it's small and it's easy. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna tell you the reason why these returns look so good is because you're gonna have to look at like 100 freaking deals
right,
to lend on one. I'm like, so 100%, if that's what you want to do it. I'm like, just be prepared that like, unless you kind of get lucky, like here's a KPI. You know,
yeah,
here's a KPI. And that's why I tell people when they're like, hey, you're a connector, you're in Gator. I'm like, yeah, but I'm not looking to do Gator deals. And here I'm like, they're sexy and, you know, the returns are high and all that. I'm like, but there's a reason why that is because it takes a long freaking time to find one. It's the same reason, like, why if you have a good wholesale deal, it's because you've had at least 250 good conversations. If your team
yeah,
is really good, like that's the KPI. It's not because you trip and fell over some person who is willing to sell you their house at 50 cents on the dollar. You know what I'm saying? Like it just doesn't happen
right,
that easily. So,
No.
you know, especially with Gator deals too, it's just it's very transactional for me. You know, I want to be vetting my borrowers and like really believing in their operation. You know, it's something that like would bring me joy if I was operating it. So like those are the kind of deals that I want to bring money to, right? Because those are the things that I could speak passionately to somebody that's looking to lend their money on real estate. So for me, like the whole thing with Gator, it's just, you know, I think it's a flash in the pan. And I hate to say that. I mean, it's not like it's not a good program and people are out there like really freaking being successful at it, but it's not for me personally as a connector. So
right.
that's what I'm hearing from most people who are looking to lend money, and that's okay. Um, it's not like what I want to do though. So
Yeah, yeah. You know, I've had some interesting conversations lately with all these laws that are coming out against wholesaling, and how that's going to, you know, start to trickle and kind of move across the United States. The person that we're not considering that's going to be impacted by this is going to be wholesalers, of course, but
mhm.
all of those individuals that are Gator lenders on EMDs are going to be hit. Like there, it's already a hard pull. It's already a red water, right? Like it's not a blue ocean out there when it comes
Right.
to EMD deals. And if wholesaling gets harder and harder to do in states, that if you're just an EMD individual, like it's going to get harder and harder for you to make money because there's
Yeah.
not going to be as many deals. So
I mean, double closing.
Yeah.
So they're
mhm.
raise
And
that
like
business
y'all
credit.
said, wholesaling isn't for everybody. And that's why I gave Blake the advice I gave Blake earlier, which is that, like, what do you want to be doing at the end of the day? Right. Because
um,
I had somebody else, like, he's not the first person I've had to give that advice to. And it hurts my heart every time I have to tell somebody that, like, you're doing the wrong thing. You are banging your head against the wall unnecessarily when you could be doing what you really are passionate about.
Mhm.
Blake's trying to do pre-foreclosures. I had somebody else that was trying to run a wholesale business all on his own while he works for the mayor of New Orleans. And I had to tell him, I was like, bro, what's your end goal? He said, mobile home parks. I said, then why aren't you doing it? Well, because everybody told me I need to start in wholesaling. I said, yeah, but bro, I know you personally. Like, you have the experience. You're an operator. And, that's why I'm really glad I connected with who I connected with, because I connected with Jill Jensen early on. She pushed me to go into that capital raiser, that connector role, and stay in my lane and do what I'm good at and just connect with people and make them laugh and we can all have fun. And I ended up connecting him with Jill too, because I told her, I was like, look, this guy's an operator. He wants to buy and hold. Like, this could be somebody you end up raising money for. But
mhm.
start at least, maybe you don't start exactly where you need to be, right? Like, you might be like, I want to own 505 unit multifamily apartment complexes. Great. You probably have to start smaller than that, but start on a path that makes sense to build to that. Wholesaling pre-foreclosures does not make sense to build to 505 units. It just doesn't. It doesn't translate.
Right. And you don't necessarily need to start smaller. You just need to go find the people who are already doing it and bring them value and get in that way. By starting smaller, you have to realize that you're not going to be the only owner of the 505 multi-unit. You're going to go find the people that can help you get it done. But you don't have to start with the 10 unit and work your way up.
Actually,
Um,
let me clarify
Yeah.
that, because you made a good point. And what I mean by starting smaller is acquiring the skills. I don't mean start smaller as in go out and only buy duplexes, and you have to buy so many duplexes before you buy fourplexes and fourplexes to 30plexes. That's not what I mean.
mhm.
What I mean is, like Cass is saying, go find who's doing it, shadow them, give value to them. They will let you into their circle and start acquiring those skills.
Yeah.
That the skills are more important than everything else.
It reminds me, a little bit over a week ago, I had a TC talk that I put on every month here in San Francisco, and I had a experienced flipper come and speak. So he's a general contractor and a flipper, excuse me. And I asked him the question of, if you were a brand new flipper, where would you start? What would you do? And he said, I see a lot of individuals in SubTo who are coming in and they feel like they have to be a wholesaler or they have to do these other things, but they're also dabbling in flipping. He says, no. He's like, if it was me, I would go find a flipper and I would work for them. He's like, I would go straight to what I want to do, and I would ask them to, like, whatever you need done, I want to help you, and I want to learn from you. And if that's your end goal, like, find somebody that is doing an amazing job at what you want to do and ask to help them, right? So you can learn from their wins and their losses. You can hear about where they have failed and where they've succeeded, and that's going to make you succeed faster than if you were just going out and trying to piece a little bit of money here and there on the side so that you then can start your flipping business, right? And I thought that was really powerful and a good comment that he made.
Absolutely. 100%. And to add to that too, every role actually has multiple roles, right? So as a connector, okay, I've talked to a lot of people who should straight up be integrators, and they think that they need to figure out how to call sellers. They need to figure out how to be on the phones and close deals. And I'm like, oh my God, no. I'm like, I'm good at that. I need you to be good at what you're good at, because I need you to do those things. So I don't have to do those things. I'm terrible at them. and it just messes up the whole business. So, like, I think, Nayeli had talked about it earlier. She's like, I was doing this and I didn't really like it, and I was good at underwriting. And I was just thinking to myself, God, I'm looking for an underwriter. And I got a meeting with somebody where it's like, hey, in my connector business, I can literally talk to 50 people a day and still have energy afterwards, right? That's not true for everyone. Like, talking to people is exhausting for different personalities, right? But you sit me in front of a spreadsheet, I'm like, it's like, yeah, I can underwrite this deal and I can vet it and all of those things, but I freaking don't like doing it because I'm not amazing at it, right? And like,
Right.
numbers don't come easy to me and all those things. So even in my connector role, you have to be multiple different people. There's a whole conveyor belt in connecting. But what I want to do is find the person who's like, yeah, I love numbers. It's so easy. I can spit them, blah, 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 blah. If I had that person as my partner, my business would just take off, right? Because
Right.
it's like, cool, I'm going to look at what you've done as well, because, four eyes are better than two. But at the end of the day, like, you've done the heavy lifting for me on the things that take me much longer, and it makes me want to take a nap. Like, when I sit down in
Yeah,
front of
but Cass, you already have
20,
glasses on.
right? So 6 eyes. um,
But you need somebody like Emily Bowe, who's legitimately a data scientist in her W-2 and a
Mhm.
rock star underwriter,
mhm.
by
Yep.
night.
Yep. And we've
Yeah.
talked about that too. And I was like, could I just send you like, 15 deals a week? And she's like, oh, that might be too much. So
Yeah.
she has a specific goal in mind, right? But she could have easily been like, oh, here's a way for me to make money, and stopped doing what she was doing, which is, she's really looking to, like, we've connected on wanting to do co-living, and she's more specifically towards assisted living and senior care, which is not really my forte per se. But she could have easily gotten shiny object syndrome and be like, okay, let me do this. But if she
Right.
did
That
that, it's going
comes
to take up so much more mental capacity from her to do the things that she wants to do. So it
that
wouldn't
comes
really make
down
sense.
to keeping those promises to yourself though too, right? Like when I joined SubTo, I had made a promise to myself before joining, because I told the guy from New Reach I was not going to sign up if I had to sit there and cold call people and door knock and do all that. Because
Mhm.
I had made those promises to myself earlier in my career throughout my 20s. After I had done those things, I gained that experience. I wasn't going to do it again.
Mhm.
And so when I joined SubTo, it gave me a different level of clarity because everyone was like, you just need a door knock. You just need to cold call. You just need to. You just need to. You just need to is the worst way to communicate an idea of what you think somebody should do.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you all that now. Don't say that. You can give advice, you can give suggestions, but unsolicited advice does not go far, and especially not with me. If I have a promise I need to keep to myself, you can bet that promise goes above everything else, and that's something you learn by doing stuff like 75 hard.
Right. Yeah. And easier said than done. I promised myself not to eat that bag of Cheetos, but I got red fingers, right? So, I mean, definitely easier said than done. And there's a discovery period too, where you find yourself and what you like to do and what you don't like to do. So, I do agree with to the advice of pick something and stick with it for 90 days to an extent.
Mhm.
Like, if you're miserable and you're doing everything you can to avoid doing the thing, then just don't do it. That's not the thing. Find something else. And it's okay to have that shiny object syndrome a little bit, because that's kind of how you find your zest. Um, Zero to hero for the same reason. Yeah. Yeah. At the end of the day, I mean, we can tell everybody, like, this is how we started. And I love to tell people the same thing that we talked about with Blake earlier, is like, what's your goal
Mhm.
before I tell you anything? Because you
That
don't
too.
have to start wholesaling. It was the same thing that, like, Pace told Elena Tang. He's like, you don't need a wholesale, dude, just be a buyer. And she's like, well, we don't have that much money. He's like, yeah, you go raise capital and then be a buyer. And now, like, how many doors does her and Kirk have? Like, freaking 25 or something like that.
A good chunk for sure.
Mm-hmm. 100%.
Well, guys, we are coming up on the top of the hour here. I said we
Yeah.
would keep it to about 2 hours. So the one thing I just want to ask is if you guys have gotten value from this, go make a post in the group, share it, invite somebody, because it's the same link every week. I show up every week and we just go until all the questions are answered. And we try to bring up as many people in the community that are doing good things, like Cass, like Emma, like Amber, that we can spotlight, and they can, because I don't have every answer, but we do, between the three of us or the four of us or the 50 of us, as this Zoom grows, we can find the answers.
Yep.
So if anybody has any last minute questions, we might take like one more, but if not, we'll sign off here in a couple minutes. Any final thoughts, ladies, while y'all are up here?
No, I always like throwing out there, if anybody's in the North California area, or if you're going to be visiting near the Bay Area, I want to meet you in person. I mean, there's something that's genuine about having that connection in person. Go to as many meetups as you can. And of course, if you are in my area, call me. Let's grab a coffee. Let's grab a drink. Let's go to a meetup together. I think it's really important.
Heck yeah. And if
Cass,
any of you are
closing.
randomly in Alaska, same.
Okay, if I get lost on my sled, I'll let you know.
Actually, somebody did just come and she's like, hey, I'm on my way to Anchorage. I'm like, what? And she's like, yeah, my boyfriend lives in Wasilla. I was like, oh shit. A bit of a tight weekend. I wasn't able to go meet her, but it
That's
happened.
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, cool.
Thank you guys so much. It's always fun
Yep.
hanging out with y'all.
And like I said, if we made you laugh, we made you think, pay the fee and just tell a friend, guys. That's all we ask.
Yeah.
And we will see y'all next week. Talk to everybody soon.
Bye.